Hello, hello, hello. This is Attorney Don Dennis. It is a pleasure to be back. I have been on hiatus for almost a month now, and I will tell you a little bit about that why. But first and foremost, I want to welcome you to the Law Office of Don Dennis channel, where we focus on giving great advice and analyzing what is going on in the news so that we can make better decisions concerning how we conduct our business and business or financial transactions, more importantly, because we're trying to stay out of court and we're trying to keep our deals working as smoothly as possible. I would like to say hello to everyone that is tuning in, whether now or later. I appreciate you. I appreciate the support. And most importantly, please reward all of my efforts by making sure that you hit that like button, subscribe button, and share button. So, as is most apparent, I have not had any videos out in almost 1 month, but I have very good reason as to why. My lovely wife and I welcomed twin boys into the world at the end of last month. Nice, strong, healthy young men. And we are elated about it. We are thankful and grateful, and everything is moving along just smoothly. We have Don the third, named after me, and Noah Elijah. So the boys are active, they're strong, and they're giving us a run for our money in a good way. Now, I'd like to say, and thank you, Corey. I appreciate the congratulations. We most appreciate it. We are most elated by all of the well wishes that we've been getting and all the lovely support. And we're grateful for it from all friends and family and just everyone out there, clients as well. So, as always, this channel is, and the content is rated R for real and not PG for playing any games whatsoever. Today, we are talking about the fact that the feds, the Department of Labor, and when we say feds, if you're out of the country, we're talking about federal agencies and bureaus and departments within the United States. And we have various departments in the country, such as the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Labor, and things of that nature. Also want to give a shout out to Nick C. Thank you for watching. We appreciate it. And what happens is sometimes when things are going on that are not in accordance with what the law is, people file complaints. Sometimes they're done anonymously, and you might have a whistleblower complaint, someone trying to expose something. Other times it's done, hey, someone might say, I don't like what you did, I'm filing a complaint with the government. And that is another way that you can seek to have your issues adhered to, or to seek redress. So for example, if your job is not treating you fairly, not paying you what they owe you, rather than hire an attorney and file a lawsuit, you might want to, we can't hear. Let's see here. Okay. Corey said he wants to hear what I think about the Trump federal situation too. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that because with respect to that Trump situation, it appears that they are finding all kinds of classified and secret documents at his residence that I don't know whether or not he had the authority to have them there. Also, their subpoena, and they're questioning various people before Congress. So it's really getting sticky. I'm not certain what's going to happen with that, but I have been hearing the updates. I know a lot of the Republicans in Congress are trying to kind of protect and shield him. In fact, I know that if you are kind of going against that wave of protecting Trump, such as I believe Liz Cheney in Wyoming, they pretty much are predicting she's going to lose her seat in Congress. So, we're going to wait and see how that plays out. But as I was saying with respect, so thank you, Corey, for the question. But as I was saying with respect to the departments within the federal government, if you have an issue oftentimes and you're not able to afford an attorney, you might call up the Department of Fair Housing and have them look into a situation you might have going on with your landlord or with a lender if you're trying to get a home loan. Also, you might contact the Department of Labor if you're not being paid fairly. So in this situation, I don't know exactly how the Department of Labor got involved, but they got involved and they are investigating various Wingstop franchisee franchises that are owned by Rick Ross, whose real name is Mr. Roberts. So, interesting thing is, his LLC or corporation or entity that owns it is called Boss Wings. So the feds looked into it. They conducted an investigation and then they put out a news bulletin. And they stated that Wingstop franchisee illegally deducts uniform, training, background check costs from their employees' salaries, which is a big no. And they are going to recover, let's see. Okay. And they are going to recover $51,674 in back wages and liquidated damages for 244 workers. Now, if they only were investigating, my understanding, 5 locations and they obtained this much of a settlement, that's a big settlement. And that seems like a whole lot of people were participating in this. So this is big. In addition, they are assessing $62,753 in penalties. So when the government comes after you, they're coming after you based on the department. Some departments have the ability to come after you for fines and penalties and money that's owed to people that are being hurt. Other departments, like the IRS, when they come after someone, they not only have the ability to fine you, but they have criminal prosecutorial power where they can put you in jail. So I don't know if you remember a few years ago, they fined Wesley Snipes and he had to go to jail. They fined Ronald Isley, Mr. Biggs, and he had to go to jail for a stint of time. So certain agencies and certain departments have the ability to do that. So what specifically were they coming after Rick Ross about? Well, they're saying that Boss Wings at one of their franchise locations allowed a 15-year-old employee to work past 10 o'clock at night on several occasions in June 2021, which violated the federal labor standards child labor laws. So if you have youth minors working for you, there are certain laws that dictate what hours they can work and what hours they must stop working. And it is your responsibility to know this when you hire people. It's not anyone else's responsibility. You can't say, hey, I didn't know, I'm sorry. No, you are responsible. If it happens, you have to deal with it and you have to take accountability for it. And if you don't, as you can see here, the feds will come in and make you take accountability. What else did they find during their investigation? They found, and yes, as Corey said, that is a huge no. They found minimum wage violations. Minimum wage is the least amount of money that you can pay someone to work. Minimum wage is different in every state. However, the federal minimum wage is $7.25 per hour. Based on and so what the feds say what was going on was at Boss Wings, which are owned by Rick Ross at various locations, what was going on is they were deducting from the paycheck of their different employees for things such as their uniforms, if the cash register was short. So for example, at the end of the night, obviously we know they had at least one teenager working there, and we know teenagers sometimes and other people make common mistakes on the register. Maybe you come up short. Maybe you give someone a pass if they're $1 short or a quarter short, or maybe you just did a calculation error. You were in a rush. You put the money in wrong. Well, what they were doing was, okay, well, you come up short, we're going to deduct that from your paycheck. Well, the Fed said that is a minimum wage violation because now people are getting paid less than what they're owed. In addition, they were making employees go through safety training and background checks and making deductions out of the employees' paychecks for the time they spent doing this. If you have an employee and your employee has to go through certain training that you require at the job, or they have to go get a background check, or they have to do other things, you cannot take that out of their paycheck. And so if they were going to be due overtime because they went to work and now they have to go do some type of safety training and they have to be paid at overtime, that is called wage theft if you don't pay them at that overtime rate. Overtime means that, for example, if you're making $10 an hour and you get paid that every hour, once you get past 8 hours, now you are on overtime, so you have to get paid time and a half. And if you were being paid $10 an hour, you're owed $15 an hour. So you get that time plus half of that time for each hour that you work overtime. And what the Department of Labor said in their course of their investigation, they found that wasn't going on. Yeah, as Corey said, just handling the business all hood. Like, yeah, people were doing whatever apparently they wanted to do. So think about what he just said. Regardless of the fact that you have money, regardless of the fact that you're wealthy, you still have to follow the laws. And ignorance of the law, saying, hey, I didn't know that was the law here, doesn't matter. Now, another key thing that's very interesting to note is the fact that it appears that Boss Wings, Rick Ross's company that owns different wing stops, own them in different states. Well, the laws are different in each state. So you have to be responsible and do the research to know what the laws are. But that's not enough. Besides doing the research, you have to put people in place that are going to manage your business locations and make sure that if you tell them, hey, look, if someone works past a certain time, they have to get overtime, you have to make sure that actually happens. You can't just assume, well, I put someone in place, that's not my responsibility. Because most likely, if you put a manager in place, they're just a manager and they don't have the financial wherewithal, as we see here, to cut a check for over $100,000 if something is done wrong. And you can't necessarily hold them responsible to pay these fines or fees or deal with government agencies if a problem persists. So as the owner, you have a duty to keep your people trained, to hire people that are qualified, whether it's an attorney, whether it's an accountant, or whomever else. They need to be qualified and competent. And it is your duty to test that and to make sure things are running smoothly. Make sure people are keeping up, because laws change. So just because you were knowledgeable as to what the laws were last year, if the laws change, your managers and other people need to remain knowledgeable moving forward, because having outdated knowledge is not going to help you. In addition, what else did the feds find? The Department of Labor found several record-keeping violations. They said that Boss Wings was not maintaining a record of employee hours worked and wage deductions. You can't just run a business and as long as you pay people, everything is okay. You have to keep records. Each state and the federal government puts on you obligations of things you have to do. And if you don't adhere to those obligations, you're going to be held responsible if they ever do a check, if they ever do an audit. So Corey said that basically Rick Ross was pocketing the team's money who were working late to buy gravy and wing sauce. Well, that's funny, but we don't know necessarily what he was doing with the money. However, if you think about it now, was it really worth it? Is it worth being put on the radar of the federal government? Is it worth having to pay all of this money in back wages and liquidated damages? Is it worth being assessed and being across the news all over the country for this? It does not reflect well on you. If you are in this situation, Wingstop is the franchisor. So Wingstop is the parent corporation. And if you want to own a Wingstop and have the ability to operate it, you can become a franchisee, which means that you can operate it under certain guidelines. And I guarantee you, one of those guidelines is that you have to follow the law in the states in which you operate. And if you don't, sometimes in these contracts, they have the ability to cancel you and to revoke the permission they've granted you to operate. So you don't want to risk these types of things. In fact, I read one article that said that because Rick Ross had a position in this Boss Wings company along with his sister and I believe his mother as well. And I think in one of the articles I read, they reached out to his sister to ask her questions and she referred them to Wingstop. Wingstop is the parent corporation. It has nothing to do with this. So now if they did not already know that they were being investigated, they definitely know now. Not only do they know because she referred reporters to them for comments, well, they can see the articles. So if they're planning other business deals, other commercials, they're going to really look carefully about that because they don't want to have this negative image on their corporation. So these are things that you have to take into account and carefully consider. In addition, when the federal government is investigating you, think about how much power, manpower, financial power they have to throw into that investigation to make sure it comes out as best in their favor as possible. Now, I'm not saying the feds are not sometimes wrong and they lose cases. However, a lot of times when they get started on a case, they're going to invest a significant amount of resources to make sure that they prevail. And even if you're wealthy, do you have the money? And do you really want to fight the federal government? How much money do you think it's going to take to fight them? Because if you don't agree to the settlement, then they can take it to court, federal court, which is even more expensive than state court, and you have a lot more to deal with. So these are things you have to take into account. And the best way to do this is to stay off their radar, to hire people that can manage your business and adhere to the law. And not only if you can hire competent people, but you have to invest the money in training to make sure that they get that continuous training that they need to remain abreast of what is going on to protect you. Because at the end of the day, think about it. Who's going to cut this check to the federal government? In addition, even if you're going to cut the check, most likely Boss Wings and Rick Ross have hired their own attorneys to go through this to really get a firm understanding to try to protect themselves in the future, to keep this from happening again. You know, Malcolm Forbes said that if you pay people the least possible, you'll get the same from them. If you pay people as little as possible, you're going to get the same from them. So if you have people that are barely at minimum wage or just above minimum wage and you're deducting from them for training, you're deducting from them for uniforms and other things like that, you're not paying them overtime. From a practical standpoint, let's take this out of the legal standpoint. From a practical standpoint, you are making possibly an enemy. How hard do you think people are going to work if they know by the time they get their check, they have all these deductions and they take out for taxes, they're barely making anything? And we're talking about Mississippi, where the standard pay is even lower. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think you're going to have allies that are going to show up when you're being investigated by the feds and say, oh, no, he's a great guy, everything was great? No. You're not going to have that. You're not going to have character witnesses that are going to say, oh, no, they treat us well here. No, you're going to have people that are going to say, oh, really, you're investigating and I can get paid money for what they've done? You're going to have people that are going to come out and say, you know what? I would like to share some things and contribute to this investigation if I can do it anonymously, if it's going to mean that I'm going to get a check and they can't come back and fire me based on what was going on. So you have to think from a practical standpoint. Corey says, at first I thought it was unfair, but after hearing the issue, Rose was pushing it to the yeah, that's one of his songs, Pushing It to the Limit. He was definitely pushing it to the limit. And these are just things and practical advice that is important. It's important to have an attorney that will talk to you about practical things going on. Because again, whether it's this situation or another one, this investigation has been going on for a while. It takes time to conclude this. And throughout that time, these things might have still been going on. So you have to think about that. Even if you're suing someone, even if they did you wrong, how long is it going to take for you to get to trial? And in the meantime, that's not going to stop what goes on in the media, in the court of public opinion, where people are talking about you and things might be negative. So how are you going to safeguard your image? How are you going to protect your goodwill, which is extremely important? So you have to make the right decisions, have the right people on your team. You can't just treat your business the way you treat a trip on a plane. You know, if you think about taking a trip on a plane, you hop on that plane, and yeah, you might pick American Airlines or United Airlines, which is just a large corporation that's been around a long time, but you don't per se know who the pilot is. And you're trusting that pilot with your most valuable asset, your life. You're hoping that that pilot has been trained properly. You're hoping that that pilot is not having a bad personal day. You're hoping that that pilot is wide awake and hasn't drank any alcohol, which would have impaired his judgment, or is not too sleepy from being up all night, partying, or just working too many hours. You're entrusting everything, your most valuable asset, to a stranger. And you cannot treat your business that same way. You cannot entrust everything to someone just because they seem to have a nice smile. No, you have to dig deep. You have to know their name. Most people, if you think about it, when they hop on a plane, they don't even look to see who's in the cockpit. You don't know if it's a man or a woman flying a plane. You don't know how they feel, if they're looking happy, if they're looking sad, if they're looking upset. You just go take your seat and can't wait to get a snack or relax and go to sleep. And you can't treat your business the same way. You can't put your business on autopilot. And if you do, you have to do routine checks. You can't even drive your car without getting an oil change every so many miles, and someone has to pop the hood and look under there. So you have to routinely check to make sure everything is running properly. If you have a business, if you have an important transaction that you're looking at, contact my office. We have the capability to assist, the capability to provide a deep dive and thorough analysis over any contract or business proposal that you are looking at. In addition, I want to thank you for watching this video. Thank you for your time. I just ask, as out of respect, that you please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and that notification bell, because a lot of good topics are coming. In fact, I will be speaking very soon, maybe tomorrow or the next day, on this lawsuit concerning the versus battle, where Timberland and Swiss Beats are suing Triller for $28 million for a breach of contract. So if you want to get some insight on that, I invite you to stay tuned, hit that notification bell, and you'll know exactly when I go live and discuss it. Again, I want to thank you, thank everyone that was watching, thank everyone that will watch. I appreciate it, and we appreciate the support. Make sure that you share this channel with your friends and anyone else that can benefit. And I'm signing off. Have a great evening.